If you're looking at the brand new DeepSeek V4 Flash model release and you're just looking at the benchmarks, you're missing the entire movie. This isn't about bragging rights, and honestly, it's not even about the leaderboards. It's about access. It's about unit economics. What happens when you have a model just as good as some of this frontier level stuff, and it can actually be served and spun up by a team that doesn't have a multi-million-dollar data center? Over on the LocalLLaMA subreddit, if you know, you know, tons of developers are already arguing right now about VRAM footprints that you need in the real world and the same day waits. Another group is pushing this model to the limits on basically your desktop PC. And as I dug deeper into this, there's one specific detail near the end of this update that tells you whether this is a real structural shift or if it's just going to be another loud model week. Welcome to Dude AI. Let's get into it. Let's start with this thread that caught my eye before the tech blogs even woke up, honestly. So the thread pulled hella likes and it was over 230 comments. And if you read through them, people aren't just like saying dope. One dev was super hyped that the model weights had dropped instantly. Another one said that the performance tier was matching the setups that were normally requiring triple the amount of hardware. As someone who actually builds and ships products, that's where I got really excited because it forces a completely different question. The question isn't just how smart is the model, it's how much intelligence am I getting per dollar, per watt, and per minute of inference time. And that's what actually matters when you're running pipelines every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year. So let's go and look at the source of truth instead of guessing. The verified fact is that DeepSeek dropped a targeted V4 Flash update while explicitly pointing the ecosystem towards a future V4 Pro release. And that tells you what they're doing right here. And I've talked about this playbook before. They're splitting their strategy. They're continuing to work on efficiency, distribution, and low serving friction. But Flash is what they're hoping can be reliable enough for your daily coding workflows, multi-agent loops, and all that good stuff. DeepSeek, as we all know, doesn't need the top of the benchmark. They need to compete. They just need developers building on their infrastructure instead of paying the enterprise tax to closed alternatives. So to keep ourselves honest, we have to look past the marketing and check the independent metrics. So in this context, a model can crush a benchmark while choking on latency or giving you cheap tokens that fall apart the second you give it a pretty hard, complex, multi-step task. When you're building, you're looking at the trade-off matrix. Does V4 Flash deliver a higher margin for actual production workloads is the key question here. And that's the core question we care about on this channel. So here's another thread that had hella comments, and most of it was straight chaos. I'm not going to front. But half of them, outside of the memes, were basically technically useful. And when you really look into it, just the sheer volume is what's really exciting to me as somebody in the space. This is setting the baseline for what everyday developers can expect from frontier class releases that are coming out of DeepSeek. So let's talk about the hardware angle. And this is honestly where it gets the most interesting as a mechanical engineer turned tech guy. So we've seen reports of V4 Flash running locally on hardware configurations that are completely bypassing the traditional data center server racks. Now let's be real. That doesn't mean that you can run it on your everyday laptop and that you're actually going to get the performance that's actually going to be reasonable. It just means the boundary here is shifting. Quantization techniques, memory bandwidth improvements, and integrated hardware architectures are redefining what we can do locally. And if you're building products and you've ever ran out of Claude or Codex credits, you know exactly what I mean when I say you like the option of having a local solution, maybe that you don't have to pay for consistently. For some people, it's about data privacy, predictable latency, and offline fault tolerance when things don't go the way that they want them to. So if local hardware doesn't fit your production architecture, the next test is going to be cloud deployment economics. This implementation breakdown covers running V4 Flash on AWS Spot instances. So here's the reality. The future of AI infrastructure isn't a single deployment paradigm. Some workloads belong on managed APIs, some run on localized, some run on quantized local silicon, and others spin up on ephemeral cloud instances only when throughput demand spikes. The model that wins is the one that's modular enough to plug into the existing pipelines without requiring a massive, painful rewrite of somebody's stack. So let's be precise about what remains unproven, because the hype will not ship your product. First, whether these benchmark gains, which are somewhat impressive, are actually going to translate into complex multi-file code bases and autonomous agent loops that you all care about. Second is whether those hardware throughput numbers are going to hold up to real-world currency outside of a controlled test bench. And then third is how is this model going to handle long context windows, long running tasks, and the tool sequences without degrading over multiple turns. So if I were putting V4 Flash through a formal eval loop in my own stack today, I wouldn't test it with some cherry picked prompt that I've designed to look good. I would drop it on the hard stuff right now and really see where it fails. Feed it a messy, undocumented repo. See if it can generate a clean patch with very clean notes for you and your specific scenario. And then run the test suite. Then I would be benchmarking the output against a leading closed model, Fable 5, Opus, one of the OpenAI models, maybe one of the MAI models, and measure things like token cost, the execution time, tool errors. The most telling line in DeepSeek's update isn't about Flash at all. It's their pointer towards V4 Pro. Flash is just their distribution vehicle. It gets the developers touching this stuff, integrating it, and building the muscle memory around their tooling. Pro is where the capability is going to get really tested. If Flash is already getting people a little bit worked up as of today, and it hasn't been up more than 24 hours, the expectations for Pro are going to be impressive. The real test is going to be if DeepSeek can convince people that their model is open source and has the ability to do some of the hard work that people have been putting towards the models that we all know and love today. For anyone that's actually building today, this doesn't mean that you need to change your tech stack or you need to even run some tests today. What it means is that once again, the unit economics of intelligence are going to decrease, and your cheaper problems, your less frontier level problems are going to be able to be served by cheaper models and potentially open source models. The reality is that the infrastructure layer is becoming commoditized way faster than people thought. It gives technical builders incredible leverage, but it also raises the bar for real execution. A clever demo is not going to be the finish line, and a lot of people can get there. You still need a defined user, a tight feedback loop, and a system architecture that survives contact with production reality. And that's the standard that we focus on this channel, turning AI-enabled systems into resilient systems that actually get to production. So here's the bottom line. DeepSeek V4 Flash matters a lot because it forces pressure on the three constraints simultaneously: capability limits, deployment costs, and hardware accessibility. The Reddit hype is loud and I'm loving it, but code execution on your project is going to be the real validator. So if you're looking at evaluating your products or your processes based on real AI evaluation frameworks, hit subscribe. This is Wadude AI, where I'm giving you the builder's read on AI. See you on the next one. Peace.